crisis, how to engage employees and serve members during the crisis. Thanks for joining us. Before we get started, just a couple of housekeeping items. My name is Mike Bollinger, and I'm the Vice President of Strategic Initiatives here at Cornerstone, and I have the privilege and honor of moderating today's panel discussion. If you need any help at any time, please send us a message by using the Q&A block located on the left side of the screen. Simply enter a question and click Submit. Please queue up your questions throughout the event in the Q&A box, and we'll address them during the question and answer segment. Additional resources are available to download on the left side of the screen, and continuing education credit will pop up 45 minutes into the certification widget, and that'll also be located on the left side of your screen. Please note that this call is being recorded and all the lines are muted. There will be an archived recording of the event emailed to you in the coming days. With that, it's my pleasure to introduce today's panelists. We're fortunate to have Jill Edsel, Director of Learning and Development at Chardway Federal Credit Union from Norfolk, Virginia. See, Jill, I said Norfolk right, I think. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Mike. As Mike mentioned, my name is Jill, and I'm the Director of Learning and Talent Development at Chardway Federal Credit Union. Chardway is a $2.2 billion credit union headquartered in Virginia Beach, Virginia, with membership concentrations in Virginia, Texas, and Utah. I joined the credit union 9 years ago and have held a series of various roles within our organization. I'm passionate about learning in both my personal and professional life, and this role has truly been an amazing fit, awarding me the opportunity to make a difference in the lives of our team members by supporting their growth and development, and I'm honored that I have the privilege to do that each day. We've been a Cornerstone client now for 3 years, and we've implemented Recruit, Onboarding, Learning, Performance, Connect, and we also have the Cyber U course package. A little about me personally, I'm a working mom just trying to figure out this parenting through a pandemic situation. And unfortunately for me, there's no job aid on how to do that successfully. So for those of you that are parents or caretakers, kudos to you. I know what a challenging time it's been. And if nobody's told you recently, you're doing an awesome job.
Thanks, Jill. We also have Joshua Ramey Rink. I hope I said that well, Joshua. Vice President of Talent and Organizational Development at the Technology Credit Union in Silicon Valley. From now on, I'm going to call it TCU. I hope that's okay, Joshua.
That's fine. Text you or TCU.
All right. Welcome, and give us a little background.
Sure. I don't have the whole Technology Credit Union pitch. We are one of the largest credit unions by assets in California, and we are expanding. We're based in Silicon Valley with 10 branches. We are expanding our territory into different parts of the states and beyond, as well as deepening our relationships inside Silicon Valley by doing work up in San Francisco. The credit union itself is part of the original disruption culture of Silicon Valley. We were the original credit union for the employees of Fairchild Semiconductor. And for those who don't know their Silicon Valley history, the founders of Fairchild were also called the Traitorous Eight, because they disappeared in the middle of the night and opened their own company down the street from where they all had been working, the 8 founders. So disruption is in our DNA. That's how we like to say it. I've been with the organization for 5.5 years, and I am incredibly passionate about the opportunity to develop people. One of the ways I like to express that is by my own whys. As L&D folks and OD folks, we often talk about 5 whys. Well, I have 3 of them, and it's because I believe deeply that healthy teams and effective leaders make strong organizations. And everything I do and all the programs we design are to support that mission. Strong organizations, healthy teams, and effective leaders. Cornerstone has been with us since before I have been. We originally had the learning package, and in my tenure, we've added performance. And we continue to expand our use of the system as we find new needs and new places we can use it. We just keep pushing the boundaries.
Thanks, Joshua. Hey, closing out this trio of excellence is Michelle Baker, AVP of Organizational Development at Forum Credit Union in Indianapolis. Michelle, a warm welcome to you. Give us a little bit more about yourself and Forum.
Thanks, Mike. Like you said, I'm Michelle Baker, and I lead the talent and organizational development function at Forum Credit Union. We are based in Indianapolis, and really all of our presence with our organization is based in Indianapolis and the surrounding areas. We've got about 350 employees, and it is a pleasure to lead the function that encompasses really all aspects of employee learning, from onboarding, leader and manager development, personal development, performance management, process documentation, and internal communications. I've been with Forum for about 5.5 years also, just like Joshua, but I've been in workplace learning and development for over 20 years, and I think it is the best job in the entire world. I think we get to contribute to helping people be successful in their roles and helping those businesses be successful as well. When we demonstrate our value and we really showcase how developing healthy employees, healthy teams, healthy performance serves your customers, or in credit union's case, our members, and just really makes a difference. And I think it's just the greatest job in the world. So we've been using Cornerstone for about 3 years. We use learning and performance, and we also have purchased the CyberU course catalog. So it is a pleasure to be here with all of you today.
Thank you, all three of you, very much. So without further ado, let's kick off the panel discussion. I'd like to start out with goals, because when you set out on any initiative involving technology, and I love this, I love being in the learning space myself, you set your sights on outcomes or the behaviors that you're trying to achieve those goals. And I'd speculate that a major goal for credit unions is simply delivering top-notch member experience. So, Joe, let's start with you. How did you look at the member experience goal as you made a decision to use talent management at Chardway? Because I know you spent some time in a variety of roles at Chardway, so it must have given you some unique insight as you embarked on that journey.
Sure. So as we were really looking for a talent management system, we know that what happens after class and through on-the-job training is just as important as what happens in class to foster the application of what's learned. So we were really looking for a system that would provide us the opportunity to deploy and measure the entire training program, not solely focused on the singular learning event. And Cornerstone truly has helped us do just that. So from the very beginning, virtual instructor-led training and that integration provided us the consistency to be able to deploy programs across multiple states, really ensuring that the member experience, onboarding process, and upskill training was aligned and consistent regardless of what market our team members were based out of. Without being physically present in a traditional classroom, as all of our training is virtually led, on-the-job training checklists provide us such valuable insight, and being able to automate all of those functions within the LMS was incredibly beneficial and provided us just great insight and allowed us to capture important feedback along the way. I also really appreciate Connect and the ability to informally learn and share best practices with one another. So being able to have team members in a cohort and share those best practices, especially when it comes to deploying a new product or a new service, we can ensure that that community becomes a one-stop shop and everybody is getting consistent messaging with that experience that we're looking to deliver in regard to the product or service. So it's been a really rewarding experience for us being on the platform so far.
Excellent. Thank you. Michelle, I know member experience, when you started on that, you were also thinking about scalability for your teams. I think you even mentioned when we talked that it was one of the things that kept you up at night. You want to talk about that just a little bit?
Yes, absolutely. So scalability to grow as our talent and organizational development strategy becomes more defined over time, as well as having a system in place that really aligns learning, ongoing development, and performance management in one simple interface. Our previous systems were cumbersome, both from an administrator standpoint, but also from an end user standpoint, which really sort of hindered adoption and utilization of the system. So we were really looking for a solution to improve that experience, since that's really the backbone on which our programs and our content are built, and ultimately helps employees be successful in their roles.
Thanks. Joshua, I remember you saying you were not, I think in your introduction, you weren't part of the original decision to use Cornerstone, but you were part of the decision to expand it. You want to talk just a little bit about how that expansion matched the goals of TechCU? Joshua?
Absolutely. First tech glitch of the day.
Not a problem.
So as Michelle mentioned, simplicity is really important in the work that we do in human resources and learning and development. And when we looked at what we wanted to do to move from a whole extra performance system that was designed by in-house engineers and was perfectly adequate for performance of yesteryear, when we looked to come into the more technological age, what we realized was we wanted to streamline our system. So pushing to get a system that we were already using and expanding its usage was a really big part of our decision matrix. And we did a full RFP, and we did end up going with the Cornerstone Performance because it matched all of those goals. And it was something that our managers and leaders were already used to using because we had learning in place.
Thank you all for the plug. I appreciate it. Moving on to the topic of balance now, let's talk a little bit more from a practitioner perspective. You all operate in a regulated environment, and often that makes development a two-sided coin because you want to focus on both the member experience, but also how an associates can deliver that. But you have to balance that between some of the compliance needs, the regulated stuff that needs to be done. Michelle, I know Forum does a deep audit every year of alignment for both performance and learning data. Talk a little bit about what goes into that audit, or should I say comes out of the audit?
Well, we're currently in the middle of that audit, so this question is very timely. Forum participates in the Training Magazine Top 125 program each year, and the application process requires a thorough review of all programs, of all training methods, of results from each program to determine the effectiveness, innovation, and then alignment to business goals and priorities. So that certainly includes really every type of training you could do. So being from a very regulated industry like financial services, that also encompasses, are we meeting those compliance regulations? Because that really contributes to the business plan and maintaining our charters and organizations. So it's kind of right there at the forefront of what we're doing, even though it's not as really cool and sexy as some of the other things, but it's very important. But I think what's also important, I think now more than ever, when you think of challenging times like what we're in right now, it is so important that HR or the learning and development function just truly demonstrates value. And this program is a big part of how we do that. It helps us maintain executive support and ensure that what we're doing contributes to our business goals and the member experience. So we've been fortunate to be on the top 125 for the past several years, including right now in 2020, we were number 16. And the recognition is really nice, but it's even, thank you, but it's even more rewarding to know that it's not just us saying that we add value, because our application is truly reviewed and vetted out both quantitatively and qualitatively by a panel of industry experts. And that helps validate our impact.
And Joshua, when we talked previously, we talked a lot about your efforts focused on making managers and leaders a part of this balance and this quest. In your development efforts, as you develop managers, we talked about them as the multiplier effect. What are some of the best practices you might share in enlisting managers in that quest around that multiplier effect as you think about that balance?
Absolutely. Great question. One of the things that is really critical at our work at TechCU is this notion that management and being a leader is not just about making sure tasks get done. And we spend a lot of time on training and developing leaders to think about their employees as a whole package and about their job as not just, again, the tasks of the day, but of creating an environment that is good for the team, good for themselves, good for the membership. And my personal work is largely focused on that leadership and management development. And we focus a lot from one-on-one development with coaching programs to help managers and leaders become the people that they envision themselves. And what I've loved about that is so much of the time when I ask leaders what they want to be doing the most of, the answer isn't, I want to be the next CEO. It's, I want to make sure my team is successful. And once you have managers and leaders with that perspective, helping them and supporting them in doing that becomes the best job in the world.
Excellent. And it's actually something I believe a lot in too, Joshua, which is as HR practitioners, we can set the stage, we can create the effects around the tools and so on, but we can't do it by ourselves. We have to actually enlist the business, and sometimes using managers as the multiplier effect is a significant way to go about that. Jill, same question to you. I know that creating leaders is a critical goal for you on the member experience that we talked about. And I know you're also trying to craft that through a learner experience, something I know you're passionate about. How do you balance the development and regulatory imperatives as you go about creating the leaders?
Absolutely. We've really been hyper-focused on empowering our leaders to make decisions using good judgment. We've recently implemented our competency models, and we began focusing more on the how and the why of decision-making instead of just the outcome. So when a decision's made where maybe that leader's leader would have had gone in a different direction, we're really utilizing that experience as an opportunity to seek to understand their thought process and coach to the process and their thinking instead of just the outcome. This method has allowed our team members to really feel empowered and make smart business decisions and really feel supported by their leader throughout the process.
Excellent. All right, so let's talk a little bit about what is always the elephant in the room. We've had a significant impact over the last few months in a variety of ways that has literally upended a lot of the way that we go about work. And so let's talk about some of the issues that we face in the current times related to COVID and some of the other issues that we've noted in the last 3 to 6 months. I read a recent article in the CU Times which used a notion that I really liked about the idea of reboot, reimagine, and redefine. And it really, to me, is speaking to organizational agility where each of you have a real impact. So in the context of reboot, reimagine, and redefine, let's talk about how you adapted and how you might have used this COVID, if you will, and I hate to say it that way, but you used it as an accelerator to redefine the member experience in that reboot, reimagine, and redefine. And Joshua, let's start with you. I know
Sure.
You operate from strategies which are, if I can borrow from your words, elegant and simple, which I really like. I also know you're creating structures that move away from the classic branch interactions, as are many of our participants. How's COVID accelerated the TechCU approach that you were probably already underway with as you reimagined and redefined?
That's a great point. A lot of what we did what COVID did is it accelerated the pace of some pivoting that we were already doing. And it forced us to nimbly jump a couple of steps in our development, especially on the learning and development side. We were already doing as much as we could online because we do have more remote workers than we've ever had before. We have branches with better technology than we've ever had before. And we started to move a lot of our learning sessions online so people were comfortable with technology. COVID accelerated that. We went from an in-person class that we had around pandemic planning that we were running as an exercise, thought exercise on what if we had to shut down, to actually having to shut down and bring people out of the branches and bring people away from the offices. And we had to move that whole practice online. So getting people more comfortable with technology, getting people more comfortable with the notion that this is how we're going to be interacting is something that COVID forced us to accelerate with. The other thing that it's helped us do is understand that the online experience is different, especially in a time of crisis. And we work hard to demonstrate that notion that not every meeting starts off with, it's all about business. It's also about checking in, whether that's with the member, whether that's with somebody during a performance review, or whether it's like during a coffee break that we decided to implement on Friday mornings, where everyone can just digitally swing by, and the link is on everyone's calendar.
Mm-hmm. Jill, I know you hold a virtual classroom facilitator certificate, which I found fascinating. I imagine that skill set got heavily used over the last few months. How did or is Chardway thinking about this reboot, reimagine, and redefine?
Sure. Yes, it certainly did come in handy. So several years back, we made the transition away from a traditional classroom and transitioned over to a virtual classroom environment. And I don't think we realized how impactful that was going to be to our business continuity planning until we had a pandemic. So on Tuesday, we transitioned to remote work, and Wednesday class took place with literally no gaps. We were able to continue to implement all of our onboarding, all of our learning initiatives without any gaps in the experience. One of the things that I think when we talk about reboot and reimagine that I'm just so proud of organizationally is we actually pause to say, workflow has really changed. Some departments, the workflow has gone down. Other departments, the workflow has gone up. And how can we respond to ensuring that all of our teams have meaningful work to do during these times? So 150 team members were assigned to special projects and work streams. Some of those were transitioning to our Member Solutions Center or our video banking channel as members were rerouting to utilize those channels more heavily. And then some were just special projects. This initiative truly was an amazing opportunity for our team members to be able to learn something new that benefited them and our organization during this time. And there was so much value from it. Their fresh perspectives, their generating of new ideas have led to many process improvements in different departments throughout this time.
You know, I really like that. What you said in the end in particular gave them an opportunity some folks to do an opportunity to do something new. One of the things that we know has an impact on all of us is the opportunity to work on things that are stretch assignments, if you will, or something like that. So turning that reimagine into being able to do that, I think, is a really unique additive, if you will, to the development effort. I compliment you on that. Michelle, I think you did something really unique as the pandemic hit for new employees. As you worked toward some things that were more intangible and harder to teach, what I found really impressive was that you shifted to tutorials, and all good, but you did it at real pace. Can you tell us a little bit about how you reimagined and redefined it at speed like you did?
Yeah, you know, I don't know in general just how truly unique it is, but for us it was. Since our workforce is entirely in the Indianapolis area, we've had a lot of instructor-led classroom training all along. We've got a great facility for it, and we have a team that is very passionate about delivering that. And we've just followed a blended approach all along, but relied a lot on traditional classroom training, particularly for our new employees. But as the pandemic really began to affect our company, we as a team anticipated a need to be flexible and adapt to how we were providing training and when we were providing training, you know, particularly for those new employees, because we had a couple of very time-sensitive hiring needs during that time, even though our team had all gone home to work remote. And so, you know, trainers aren't in the building and a lot of our employees were not in the building as well. So what are we going to do about that? So while working remotely, our team just worked together, and I am so proud of the work that they did on this project. But they used rapid instructional design techniques to develop a series of interactive on-demand tutorials and simulations to help streamline that onboarding process. And what's great about it is not only can they be used for just that onboarding purpose as needed, but also for review or for remedial training moving forward. They've already, just in the last few months that we've had them available, they've been assigned and completed by a number of employees. So we've been really, really excited to add those assets to our training catalog, and then using Cornerstone as the platform that we deliver those on and assign them and then follow up accordingly. So it's been pretty cool for us.
Necessity is the mother of invention, indeed. You mentioned the Cornerstone platform. Open question for the group. How did and if the Cornerstone platform help you adjust? feel free, just jump in.
Sure. So, Mike, one of the components that I thought was so incredibly helpful in the beginning stages of COVID was Cornerstone released a content package free of charge to all of their clients. And the content was incredibly relevant to what we were all encountering with remote work, with remote leadership, with some basics on COVID. Having that already developed and available at the tips of our fingers allowed us the time to develop what we needed to develop internally. And there was so much value in that. So I know we were appreciative of that opportunity.
I appreciate that as well. Joshua, Michelle, you mentioned it. Joshua, any thoughts on the Cornerstone platform helping you adjust?
Sure, Mike. One of the things that we've been able to offer our managers now that's actually getting some more uptake is as we transitioned away from being able to do trainings in the building, we've actually been able to tell our managers, look, don't forget, we have the capacity to design courses and design training for you, for your teams. I have a great staff member, Elena McPherson, who is trained and very competent in translating a short workshop on a skills thing into an on-demand workshop via Cornerstone. That's not just the PowerPoint. It's actually really interactive. And what that's done is we've actually expanded that and said, look, if you don't need to have a whole course, but you would have just taught people, for example, how to do this year's budgeting process, we can work with you to put it together so it can be done remotely, on demand, very simply. So we started to see some more adoption from managers because we can create those quick programs just more for the ad hoc things than this training is going to be good for 2 years.
Excellent. Simple and elegant, right?
Yep, absolutely.
So let's talk a little bit about adoption. It's actually a favorite topic of mine. One of the things, and I've written on this topic as well. Change management and adoption are often used as synonymous terms, and I often tell people change management is not about change; it's more about grief and loss, because it's just not the way it used to be. And there's a phase in there where people say, "I'll show you. We'll just do this really, really well." But when you start down these journeys and you're making organizational agility efforts that really are impacting your individual credit unions, you all work in highly recognizable and brand conscious environments, and adoption, you're always thinking about that as well. And I know that each of you are huge advocates of using branding as an adoption technique for Cornerstone, as well as some of the adoption methodologies that you would think in terms of continuous communication and so on. So let's spend just a couple of minutes talking about that. Jill, back to the learner experiences and your focus on that role at Chardway. How did you emphasize the learner experience in conjunction with the broad adoption techniques and the potential branding that went with it?
Sure. We really focused on keeping it easy and keeping it fun. So we relied heavily on feedback from others to help us build out our platform. We had large cross-functional groups during our beta testing, and we continued to use large cross-functional beta groups whenever we implement any new function within the system. Their feedback is so valuable to us to make sure that the learner experience is really intuitive and that it comes with ease. And then we keep it fun. We maintain the branding that we use internally on our intranet. We have a blast with all of the custom login messages and learner home rotating banners and thumbnails. We've actually really, through the use of those becoming engaging tools organizationally, we will program a login message and feature the course. And within one day, with no additional internal communication, we typically see a 30% completion rate of that course. So our team members are going in, it looks fun and engaging, and they click through to find out what it's all about.
Quick question for you, Jill. How long was that? That wasn't immediate. How long did that sort of take in order for you to get that kind of an uptake moving forward?
So So we kind of had some of the push towards adoption with internal contests. So we found that that helped immensely in the beginning. We talked a little bit earlier about being a heavily regulated environment, and we try to make compliance fun. So we have a compliance course of the month, the Beat the Compliance Crunch. So team members will log in, and then they'll see courses that rotate and are incredibly relevant for what's going on around them, highlighted within that login. I would say it took us 6 to 12 months to really see that adoption uptick. But on average, we have 70% of our team members log into the system monthly, which is pretty incredible. Those are unique logins.
Very, very good. Actually, I was just, compliance is fun. I do a session where I talk about compliance as a strategy for culture. And we started out with, is compliance like Brussels sprouts or cupcakes? And I always answer, I like Brussels sprouts, so it's okay to be either one. Michelle, I know that you do everything framed against the forum purpose statement, helping members live their financial dreams, which I like. I love that, by the way. Talk about how you folded this purpose statement and that branding into your adoption strategy.
Absolutely. And I got to say about the Brussels sprouts or cupcakes, mine is the spinach in the smoothie. That's kind of, Well, it's essential that every forum teammate, regardless of role, can establish and maintain a direct line of sight to the member experience. Because, in some roles, it's very obvious. They're face-to-face with a member all day, every day. But in other roles, you're a step or two removed. And sometimes it's easy to lose sight of that. So making sure that our training and development offerings and how we talk with leaders and how we teach them to communicate with their teams about that. We need to make sure that that all aligns with our purpose statement of helping members live their financial dreams. But, we've taken it a step further. So it's not just words on a wall, and it's not just a glossy statement that looks really good. It's really the behaviors that back that up. Mm-hmm. And when we take it a step further, it's also considering our focus of employee development and performance. So we're proud to support our employees in that purpose statement and their sort of embodiment of that purpose statement. But we're also really proud to help our employees live their career dreams in a way that is engaging and accessible. And so that's been a really important distinction to say that we're looking at it in our world in a kind of a dual approach, both taking care of our members, but taking care of those employees as well, because we want this to be a place that our employees, come and work and really enjoy their time with us. And they find it as a great place to, grow and build a career for the long term.
Absolutely. I really love this notion that the member experience is driven by the employee experience. And we've seen various iterations of that statement and all kinds of things moving forward from a customer perspective. But I think the notion of member experience and employee experience really runs home in the credit union industry in particular. Hey, Joshua, you're doing something pretty unique as you take TechCU through a new phase in its business. And that adoption in terms of the leadership, as well as some of the other things that you're doing around performance. So that change, again, is kind of about loss rather than the change itself. How have you handled the adoption for TechCU?
Sure. And again, we see this a little bit more as evolution than loss, because it has been, there's nothing better about being called technology credit union than being able to point out the fact that as we bring in better technology, we are intrinsically meeting our mission and expectations. So that's actually been a wonderfully helpful aspect of what we do, is reminding folks, hey, if we're bringing in new technology and we are switching around to more remote work and we're enabling that with technology, we're literally fulfilling our mission and the vision of the members we have and the founders, as well as a lot of people who work here. The other piece that's really important about this is how much we spend a lot of time teaching our leaders, and by leaders I mean anybody who has a staff member or has influence at the organization, so it's not just the C-suite, on the very ideas behind change management. We incorporate that into our leadership development programs, the notions of how you drive change by listening to people's concerns with it and addressing them, not just sweeping them under the rug and saying, you must do this. So by that double whammy of this is technology. This enables us to fulfill our mission. This enables our branch staff to focus on their jobs because it is the technology solution, along with good change management techniques and skill building in that space. Adoption is relatively smooth. I've been involved in lots of system changeovers in my career, and moving to more of what we do with technology has been some of the easiest transition work I've ever done because we look at it from those two lenses.
That's an interesting point as well around adoption. You know, you almost have to bake adoption into the very front end of everything you plan on doing because, and a lot of times I see clients that don't necessarily think about it. It's sort of, we stood it up, we got these goals, and then, oh yeah, we need to do something about adoption. It really needs to be at the front end. Would you agree with that?
Yes, adoption, thinking about adoption has to be part of not just the implementation process, but part of the research process. As you think of, you know, for us, for example, as we were looking at bringing in performance, part of what we thought about is how easily or understandably will people be able to use this? Where will they love this? Where might they resist this? So adoption and usage has to be at the forefront of the whole process. I think we've all read that statistic from John Cotter that says something like 70% of all change initiatives fail.
Yes.
And it's because the change comes from on high, and then it's just sort of supposed to happen. By having an organization where thinking about how we adopt a change and how we adopt new practices, and frankly, some of our core values, we have 4 core values, 2 of which are innovation and acceleration. So we expect to move quickly with cool new stuff. It's part of our DNA. And so, but you have to start, to your point, Mike, you have to start with the notion of this isn't just a cool, shiny thing. This is a thing that must make people's lives better. And they're going to want to use it. And we have to make that case. And we have to think about that from the very beginning.
And I always think about it as, you know, sometimes there's this notion of if we build it, they will come. And we always have to be mindful of the with them, the what's in it for me, for those who we are targets for the adoption, if you will. Let's talk a little bit about measures and success measures, another area that I'm really, really passionate about as you embark on these journeys. And one of the things that I'm really passionate about is when you do set up the measures, and they need to be aligned to the business, and this is the lecture portion of our conversation, you also need to make sure that you can baseline it. A lot of times people set goals for themselves that they can't baseline so that they can measure the success moving on. So in each of your cases, let's talk just a little bit about the success measures you set up for yourselves, whether it be in recruiting, learning, performance, content, doesn't matter. How you align that to business impacts and outcomes, and how Cornerstone might have enabled you to achieve your strategic goals. And was there something that you stumbled on, because that happens a lot as well, as a unexpected benefit that's worth sharing for our audience? Michelle, how about you? Let's start there.
Sure. You know, as I got thinking about this, we look at a lot of the traditional metrics that aren't unique to most organizations. So employee retention and internal promotions and improved performance, and, having something in place long enough that it's not just a shiny object and we get a quick win and then we change to something else, but what are those true best practices that are consistently, perform well for us over time? And so I was thinking through all of these things. And like I said earlier, we're in the middle of really reviewing all this year for our annual program audit. But I had one example that really stood out to me. And it's our Lending Academy, which is a robust cohort-based training program that enables new lenders that are based in our branches. So these member-facing employees that are making a transition from like frontline teller work to being able to open new accounts and do loans there in the branch. Originally, this program's been around for a while. It's originally started out as a 9-week program, very impactful and very consistent, but very, very time consuming. And last year, we revised some of the content and the delivery structure to make the program more efficient. But the key was not to sacrifice any of the interactivity or the integrity of the content. And so as we really took that program under the microscope, we were able to take it from a 9-week program down to a 5-week program. And those efficiencies have proven to save training time for both the learner and the instructor. And it promoted more rapid skill development and performance improvements when those new lenders applied what they learned on the job. And Cornerstone was a big part of that, because that helped us really streamline that experience as we continue to develop and prepare new lenders to serve our members with confidence. And so it's been really interesting to see, by taking that time out, we are still contributing to our loan goals. We're still contributing to those like net income goals and other priorities that are consistently important for our organization. We've been able to save time, and time is money, and when you need to get that buy-in from leadership, you've got to speak that language that your leaders speak, and that language is money. How do you make the company money? How do you save the company money? And we've been able to do that through that program. We've been able to not drag it out for 9 weeks. And not that it was bad being 9 weeks, it was robust and engaging, and it was time well spent, but we found a more efficient way to do it. And from a success metric standpoint, it's both that quantifiable, because there's some really specific savings and rapid application of skills that we see as a result of that, but also the confidence that they build much quicker. And it's that qualitative improvement as well that we were able to see. It was just, that one just stood out as a huge example to me that has been unexpected and surprising, and just something that we're really proud of.
That's a great story. It really is. And you actually triggered something I often tell people. Look, there's really only 3 business goals. You either increase revenue, reduce costs, or reduce risk. And whatever you're doing against a measure, if you can't point to one of those 3 things, then it's probably not going to resonate with leadership. That's a great point. Joshua, same question for you. How are you measuring success? What did you go in with, and were there any unexpected quantifiable benefits that you found?
Sure. So one of the things that we added in a few years ago when we retooled a lot of the learning and development processes that were in place is we took a look at that notion that your learner, in a sense, is your customer. So in the evaluations that we give people after the classes, we actually include what a net promoter type question, which says, would you recommend this program to another person at TechCU? And we run those surveys via Cornerstone, so they're attached to the individual classes. And what that lets us do is it lets us rate very diverse topic types to a common denominator. So I can take a look and see, was the class on business writing skills as effective as the one-off program that we ran on time management? Because it lets us now start to compare programs to each other in terms of how people felt about them. And that has made a big difference, because we don't always get infinite dollars for programs. And I have to understand if I've got a limited number of, if budgets drop or I have to make choices, does it make more sense to bring business writing skills back, or does it make more sense to bring time management back? And by thinking about it like, would you recommend it? That starts to give us a metric where we can make that choice based on some data, not just how I felt about the content or how someone tells me that they felt that they did. The other thing that we've done, and some of this is in Cornerstone and some of it's not, is for some of our programs, especially our one-to-one coaching, we have that type of survey, but we also do a 1-year follow-up because we want to understand lasting impact. Our one-to-one coaching program is fairly time-intensive, and it's available to everybody in the organization. So it's not just senior leaders, it's not just executives, it's anybody. If we have coach time, and all of our coaches are trained by International Coach Federation certified organizations, and I hold a certification from both the ICF as well as the organization that trained me. And it's very time intensive. It takes 2 people together, one-on-one, 10 to 12 hours for that program over about 4 months. We want to know a year later, was that impactful? And so by doing the 2 assessments, comparing how people feel right when they're done and how do they feel a year later, we get a sense of the enduring impact and also understand what things that we did really stayed with them.
Yeah. By the way, Joshua, I'm shocked to hear that you don't have unlimited budgets. I didn't know that.
I know, right? You think it's Silicon Valley.
But I agree with you. You're looking for evidence of behavior change, and I like the mechanisms you're using to approach that. Jill, how about Chardway? Did you set some measurable outcomes going in, and did you find anything unusual as you came out the other end?
Yeah, we actually did set some measurable outcomes. So the first was really around employee engagement results. And we wanted to drill down that focus to two specific components of engagement. So someone at work encourages my development, and in the last year, I've had opportunities to learn and grow. And since implementing, we have seen steady increases in both, and we've most recently at the end of last year landed in the 94th percentile in each of those. So we've been incredibly happy with the results that we've seen there. I know earlier I talked a little bit about adoption, but that was also incredibly important to us. Organizationally, going from skills-based training to also including the development focus, team members were really used to having training assigned to them, and they weren't really pulling for opportunities. And implementing Cornerstone, we knew we wanted those self-initiated opportunities to be taking place. And we went from having 34% in our previous LMS to 70% of our team members logging into the portal and completing learning each month, which is pretty remarkable. The third metric was automation. So we knew that we wanted to save time and get some of our time back through automation. So putting the time in up front and assessing the programming appropriately really gave us that time back. And we've seen about a 25% return solely in the Learn module, with not having to follow up, not having to manage rosters, having all of the built-in email reminder communication. It's been an incredible value to our team. And the surprise, believe it or not, actually comes around compliance. So with the curriculum builder, it seems like team members are getting in and they're getting excited, and they'll go, I'll do one more and let me keep going. And so year to date, 72% of our team members are fully complete with their annual compliance requirements, even though our deadline isn't until December. And that has been really steady right from year one. So we're super excited that the follow-up and the need to continue to push and communicate around that, it's just gone on autopilot for us organizationally. It's been a great win.
And an important thing that you just noted there too is it's not an anomaly because of COVID. Well, I've got some extra time. What am I going to do? It's something that started long before the pandemic hit. I love that story as well. So I took the privilege, if you will, of, as we did our discussion, of taking some key takeaways. And for the audience and for those of us that come back in on the recording as well, I'd just like to summarize a little bit that adoption is not something that you do and forget. It's a continuous process, and it should be baked into the front. When you think about reboot, reimagine, and redefine, the classic branch strategies may change, and you have to be adaptive to all delivery types. I think the panel has called that out pretty clearly. When you begin your journey, make sure what you want to see accomplished. And this is Bollinger banging the drum around. Make sure that you baseline. The panel is giving you some very good examples of how they went about that. And then finally, shameless plug for Cornerstone, but choose a technology partner that has a demonstrated commitment to the credit union and fin services industry. That's an important component of it as well. I'd like just to take a little bit of time. I know there are some questions, and so I'll ask a few of these questions. We got several actually. So for anyone, how did you get a buy-in from your leadership when you first started down this? You were trying to create behavior change. You were trying to align to the businesses. Feel free to step on each other. How did you get leadership buy-in?
Yeah. Mike, I don't mind jumping in.
Go for it.
Awesome. So we were really at a unique point within our organization of transitioning that skills-based training to becoming known for development. So for us, it wasn't only about what the system could do, and that's pretty impressive, but it's really how it tied into that overall strategy and how it would supplement what we had already planned on doing and help us achieve those goals. So it became one overall presentation and proposal instead of two separate, and that combining them and really telling the whole story was key.
Joshua, Michelle?
So I think it was Jill that mentioned that notion of the focus groups and the beta groups and things like that. I don't generally go to leadership with a proposal that I haven't had other people already pick apart and destroy, and then I've reformulated it. And that's just part, I mean, whether you call it design thinking, whether you call it agile idea development, whatever you call it, it's just a really good way to make sure that these great ideas that we all have and that we want to do actually are going to stand up to some pretty good poking at by folks that are, some that are numbers driven, some that are idea driven, and bringing your ideas. You get a group of people together, say, I think I'm going to try this thing out, and put your proposal together and do a demonstration for a couple of SVPs, a couple of line staff, and say, what do you all think? And let them tear it up. Go in there with no expectations and no, this is what we're going to do, period. And then you go to management and say, and if you're smart, you've also had maybe an executive or two in that unofficial meeting. And then you've got a package that you know is actually going to provide some value. Because the ones that aren't, enough people have said, I don't see this being important or relevant or anything else.
That is an absolute best practice. Thank you. That's excellent. Michelle, how about you?
Yeah, I think ours, we went in with a phased approach, actually. And so it wasn't as hard of as a selling point as I think some organizations might run into. We were looking for a new performance solution, and just timing being what it was, we were able to start with Cornerstone then. And then when we were able to demonstrate how smooth that process was and how that system was much better than what we'd been using before, when it came time, we were looking for a new learning management system, that we were able to just go to one solution for both. And that was part of that bigger strategy where we wanted to align and simplify the accessibility and really link together the concept of performance and learning and really work that into our larger strategy. And so we were finding success with performance, and it made the selling point for learning a lot easier. And now we're a few years in, and it's been great. So
also a best practice, lay claim to that. I like that story a lot. Jill, quick question for you, and it's very Cornerstone specific. Did you use the custom learner home pages for that customized featured learning?
So we actually use just the regular login page with the featured widget, and then we'll use the custom login message. But at the very top of Learner Home, we create custom banners that rotate and then carry over to mobile, and we change those out on a monthly basis.
And Michelle, quick question for you. Keeping employees motivated during the pandemic, during this time of COVID-19, there's I see a lot, my inbox is full of stuff like that. But what are some of the practices you're using to keep employees motivated as you wheel back to this remote work and redefine and reimagine?
Yeah. This is actually really close to my heart, actually. Two words that just come to mind with this is accountability and grace. And in some ways they're polar opposites, but I think we have to have both in just running the business, but also dealing with the human aspect of work right now. We need to stay focused on our deliverables. That's where the accountability comes in, especially the time sensitive ones, or the ones where we're on the hook with a regulation or, from an auditing perspective, we need to get this done for, just to run our business. But also remembering that, everybody's human and going through a truly extraordinary time right now. And so extending that grace when needed, focusing on the need to haves and really rethinking some of the nice to haves right now, is now really the right time to do everything. It's a good rule of thumb for trying to motivate all employees, but more personally, it's been really important as I keep my own team focused, connected, and engaged. I read an article just yesterday. It was a Gallup article talking about delivering on your brand promise during disruption. And I think it's just really important for organizations in general, but I took it to heart as I lead this org dev function as well. A quote from the article was, double down on the promises that you already made, just deliver them differently. And that really stuck with me, because now's not necessarily the time to necessarily reinvent the wheel and do all these cool new things, but how do we add value or support? We just need to keep doing that. It might just look a little bit different or scaled back right now.
The enthusiasm comes through. Joshua, I'll close on you. As we think about upskilling strategies for now and beyond, any advice, practical advice for the audience as we close out our session?
Yeah, I think that the notion that when we look at upskilling, think of leadership and management as a set of knowledge and skills that can be taught that go beyond the task. I'm a big fan of thinking about emotional intelligence tools and techniques. Think about the things that feel soft. We call them soft skills. I actually have I've written that out of our language, and we now call them intangibles, because there's all kinds of gendered language around soft and whatnot that we want to avoid. So thinking about things like emotional intelligence, because one of the things that drives org dev people to become day drinkers, not that I am, is this notion that we know the science is clear on a lot of this stuff. Leaders that are effective, that run healthy teams and strong organizations, have really good sense of compassion, of empathy. Their emotional intelligence and those intangibles are really high. And yet when we think about what we teach people, we often remove it to the task level. How to get someone to do what they're supposed to do, how to write out a performance report. So if you're going to upskill your leaders and your managers and your people you want to become managers and leaders, think about those leadership traits as things that can be taught and can be learned.
Excellent. Thank you. And thank you to all the panelists for your help and for your insights. And thank you to the audience for your participation. If we didn't get to your question, we'll follow up with you directly. If you're interested and you want to get in touch with Cornerstone to learn how we can help attract and engage employees, please email cornerstonesmb@csod.com. Also, just a quick call out, we're going to have a very significant free conference, Convergence Unbound, on September 16th and 17th. Adam Grant is a presenter as an example. So check out the conference agenda and register online today. It's free and it's available to all of you. And so with that, I'll conclude today's program. I want to, again, thank each of the panelists. I really enjoyed our sessions together. Have a wonderful day, and you all are now free to disconnect.
Thank you so much, all.
Thank you.
Thanks.